Exit planning is growth strategy planning.
Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where we talk with top leaders about effective strategies that inspire success. Really excited to have with us my friend Bob Bedritis. He's the founder and managing director of Oswego Private Wealth Management. He's also a CEPA, a certified exit planning advisor, helps business owners maximize the value of their businesses and achieve financial independence. And specifically, I love him working with the business owner part. He does that a great job. He has a background at Merrill Lynch, UBS, and frankly is not only an exceptional leader, exceptional business wealth manager, but he's also a really great human being. And he spoke at the workshop that we had in Phoenix this last year in 2025. And let's, Bob, kind of start with that. Hey, first of all, in your background is a picture of Florida because you're now not only living in Oregon, but you also have a residence in Florida. Tell me how that experience has been in Florida.
Thank you, Carl. First of all, nice to see you. It's always great to see you. Thank you for having me on the show today. And yeah, we established the business in Oregon way back when, and I grew up in the Midwest, and I grew up in a family that we came to Florida all of the time. So we had roots in Florida. We've been spending I've s- cumulatively I've spent years and years here over doing it months at a time throughout my entire life. And we had a business. We had a business in Florida a number of years ago. We had a branch in Florida, and it went extremely well. And then at one point, my son Eric, who's in the business, he was running our Florida branch, and of course Kim is in the business too, my daughter. And one day we decided, let's flip the script a little bit. Let me take half the year in Florida and half the year in Oregon, and I think that's the best of both worlds. I think I get to see the world from a really interesting perspective from red state, blue state. All the in these more than anything, what I'm told we're known for is helping business owners become financially independent of their businesses, irrespective of these political, social, and economic times. And boy, do I have a bird's eye seat to that. Working with Oregon clients, working with Florida clients. Of course, we have clients in 23 states, so we're everywhere. But you tend to have most of your clients where you're domiciled, right? So,
Okay, so we're gonna hold that thought for just a moment because I want to go down there and go a little bit deeper because I think there's gonna be a really interesting conversation we're gonna have on this podcast in particular about that. I'm curious for you. You were at our last workshop, and I always like to hear kind of people directly their experience. You did a great job having authentic, really powerful presentation about your life and being very genuine and the challenges you've had, but also, you said it in a very humble way, but you've also had a tremendous amount of success. And kind of from you as a presenter, but also you got the opportunity to listen to other people and be participant. Um, Tell me how your experience was there.
well, I'll put it in a few categories top of mind. Number one, I was so impressed with the quality of speakers you had, Carl. I mean, you had nationally known book deal type guys and gals there, and it's just the quality of the speakers and the content that was delivered was amazing. That's number one. Number two, of the 40 business owners that you had there, it was the salt of the earth. You had people from all over the country, and you had people there who are trying to create what I call a life of significance, which is taking care of the people you love, the causes you care about, and making a difference in the world. And those were the type of entrepreneurs that you drew. And I drew so much energy from spending time with those folks. And so that was amazing. And then the third part of it is that I love that you limited it to only 40 participants, which meant that we had time to do breakouts, we had time to have those cocktail party or the break time talks, and to really dig down deeply and see how we can help one another. You know, as the Proverbs in the Bible says, iron sharpens iron, so one person will sharpen another. I found that iron sharpening was just amazing. So 40 strategy workshop was a home run. I wish you success to keep doing them. I encourage you to do more of them, and more entrepreneurs need to be um, tied into what you're doing.
Bob, first of all, thank you for such a kind words. And yeah, one of the, once again, and I think once again, and I say this because it exceeded our expectations too. I mean, it was really humbling for us to have people have such a great experience, not only the participants, but the once again the speakers who were participating, right? So it wasn't just this show up, do a quick speech, and kind of go off and do your own thing. And then when you combine the one-on-one interaction that you also got to have with the business owners, right? To talk with them about their own personal stories, right? Because that's the problem. You go to a typical workshop and you kind of hear things, but you don't really talk about your specific problems or opportunities, right? It's like this. You kind of take this fire hose and walk away while people are going to actually talk with solution makers. And what was so wonderful is the amount of people that had follow-on discussions, with people of just, of like, hey, this was not just a one-time event. And then of course we have the cohort to go on. So anyways, I don't want to spend more time talking about that, but I just want to thank you for hearing about your experience, here with this, and here you are once again as we're recording this. You're looking beautiful in sunny Florida, and we have a sunny day here, but of course below 60, and of course there if it's below 60, that's like almost a state emergency. I should call it. When it gets below that and people are wearing parkas. Well, here we're wearing shorts when it's almost 60 degrees. So
I know quite a difference. By the way, one last comment on this the workshop is the barriers broke down very very quickly in that.
mm,
And I'm not a hugger. I'm not generally a hugger. But starting with Tommy Breedlove, who's totally a hugger, by the end of that workshop, we're saying goodbye like we're saying, we've known each other 3 days, and we're hugging and saying goodbye and staying in touch and helping one another. It's really remarkable that that's the kind of vibe that came out of yet, quote unquote, another business meeting.
Bob, thank you for sharing that. And by the way, folks, this was not a planned like talk when we went into this. Bob and I literally showed up, turned on the podcast, and like, so obviously we know each other. We've but I appreciate you saying that. It's funny. I didn't realize how much emotion was going to be in. I don't drive based on emotions. I'm much more of a let's get it done type of person, regardless of what's happening around us, regardless of emotions. That's why we work with people weekly, regardless of what's happening. It's hey, we're going to show up each week. We're going to get things done.
Uh-huh.
But it was powerful. And I'm saying as my voice like changed, there was powerful, the emotional side. I mean, there was real legit. You and I both know this. Anybody who owns a business, it's such a cool thing. It's such a cool thing to have the opportunity to have a business. And if you have the opportunity to have employees and you actually provide a product or service that makes a difference, it is such a cool thing. But you and I both know it's so hard. And this perception of business owner success is pretty overblown.
Sure, overnight success in year 30.
Right.
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 Yeah. And it's once again so hard to like develop success, create the positive things that have happened. And the reason why I say that, you and I both know the truth, ourselves doing financials, and we have a CPA firm that we see the truth, we see tax returns, and you work with people on the wealth management side, and we love partnering with you because we can put both pieces together, right? We could put
Yeah.
the hey, how we get the numbers together, but you could put the hey, here's to help you get your number, right?
Hmm.
And um and it was interesting. I was just talking with matter of fact, Mike Garrison yesterday, and he, one of the most fascinating things, and he was talking with a prospect on our part, is like that number that you guys helped come up with, the number. And when I'm talking about the number is it's your retirement number. It's the number you
Hmm.
feel like you can slow down, so to speak. You can no
Yeah,
longer
we call that the wealth gap,
the wealth
right?
gap.
We
Thank you.
call that the wealth gap.
Yeah.
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 The wealth gap, understanding what that is. And partly I say this because what's the number? You know it better than I do. What's the percentage of people that get disappointed with selling their business? What's the percent?
It's close to 75% truly regret having sold their business.
Yep. Okay. So what's crazy about that is you have these business owners, and this is the real problem. You and I both know this because we've seen this. We're just going to go through simple math right now. Just simple math. Let's just for argument's sake say somebody's number is 5 million for the retirement. And I'm not saying here or there whether it's high or low. I'm just saying, let's just say that's their number. And they sell their business for 5 million. All right. So you know where I'm going to go here for a second.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What happens, and they get excited, they sell their business for 5 million. But the next thing that happens is that they only get 2.5 million in cash. They only get 50% in cash. The other 50% is seller financing. It's rolled in as equity. It's earnouts, right?
It's an earn out of some
Okay.
sort. Yeah,
Okay.
very common.
And then often, they don't get all of that, and sometimes none of it. On top of that, the 2.5 that they did get after tax, maybe they have $1.5 million left. They're 3.5 million away from their wealth gap, right? They still
Mm-hmm.
have 3.5 million, and they have now gotten rid of the thing that was generating the money.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go down here for a minute, because this part, and we're going to go back to the whole state thing at the end, because I think it's still an interesting conversation. How do we help guide business owners to be aware of this wealth gap, be aware of what they really need to quote unquote retire with? And secondly, to make sure they have their eyes wide open when they're talking with private equity, when they're talking about potentially selling the business somewhere, so they don't become the majority, the 75% that become disappointed with their sale.
Yeah. Well, I mean, gosh, you bring up so many great points. I mean, first of all, Carl, we talk about things like the profit gap. They're not complicated. The profit gap, the wealth gap. And if there's a baseline premise that we have, is that exit planning it's not like selling a house. It's not like you're just living there and you're doing nothing about it and you find a realtor, you list it, you sell it, you're done. Exit planning is now, and what I mean by that, exit planning is really growth planning. And so exit planning ideally for me should begin 5 years before the exit. I mean, we can do it I mean, 3 years is doable depending on the business, but it should be 5 years before the exit. So let's take that business that right now can sell for $5 million. And we say, what we have identified that the wealth gap that this particular individual, this family, needs $5 million net in order to live the life that they want to live, their life of significance, taking the care of the people they want to take care of, the causes they care about, and making a difference in the world. Well, then you reverse engineer that math. You have to say, well, then this business really needs to sell for 8 million or 10 million or 7 million. There's a different number there. That's number one. And then when you do that, you just say, wow, my exit planning is really growth planning. What are the things that impede growth planning? Number one, over dependence on the owner, right? I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs, we're cowboys. We're cowboys. We love it. We do everything. Nobody's allowed to put in an order for paper clips if I don't approve it first, right? I control everything. Every major vendor is my relationship. Every major client is my relationship. And so we've got to get the owner to start thinking as a self-managing company and make themselves less and less dependent, make the business less and less dependent on them. The other thing that we want to talk about, and I think that's the secret sauce in our formula, being a virtual family office. I have curated and spent my time getting the best of the best in the legal field, in accounting. You guys are highly on that list, and private equity, M&A. And we find that there are ways to sell that business and significantly lower taxes, even potentially even reduce the taxes on that sale. And those things you don't just set up a week before you do the sale, or you already have a letter of interest. You have a letter of intent to sell the business, and then you say, "Hey, can I back up now and turn my LLC into an S corp or a C corp and make this happen?" And the answer is no. These are all things that need to be done in front. So I guess the big thing I'm saying, uh, beating to death here, is that exit planning is growth strategy planning, and it's growth for the business. It's also that personal financial planning, and the most overlooked, which is why 75% of business owners regret the sale, it's life after the business. Your identity's in the business. Your everything is wrapped around the axle of this is who I am. I own ABC stores or XYZ industries, and this is who I am. And what's your life? And I don't know. I don't know that I have a life outside of the business, and we need to prepare that. And that is a ramp. I often talk about life as a three-act play. And the first act is we get our education, we go to school, we find our spouse, we decide children, no children, where do we want to live? Oregon, Florida, Des Moines, Iowa, Columbus, Ohio, where I grew up. And you figure all that stuff out. You go through your career. At some point in that second act, the entrepreneur maybe started out as an entrepreneur, but probably like me, got kicked around the corporate world around, did well, but still realized that, hey, I'm not a corporate dude. I'm really an entrepreneur, and then start that business. And that's all second act stuff, and that's all wonderful. And then you say, here's the third act. The third act is the transition of my business, whether it's to a family member, an outside sale, to my employees, to a private equity firm. And it's the transition of my business. What will my role be or not be in that business? And then beyond that, okay, great. I've got 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Who knows how long we have to live? Medical science keeps getting better and better and better. And what do I do in that act? And like any play, I think of any play you've ever been to. The first act develops the characters. The second act creates the conflict with the players, and the third act creates the resolution to it all. And to me, that third act can be and should be the most exciting act of your play. Should be the most exciting act of your play. Not that I'm retiring from something and I'm going to find myself uh, 10 in the morning shooting pool in my house with CNN on the TV, drinking a beer. Going, I wonder, maybe I'll take a shower later and go to Home Depot or Costco. That is not a good third act. That needs to be considered during the growth planning and the exit planning of your business.
Love that call out. I mean, it is, it's interesting, right? For a season or for a period, I think it's okay to quote unquote unwind, right? However, part of what gives us so much joy, anybody who is an entrepreneur is a high achiever in most cases. They are
Absolutely.
they're hardworking, they're often competitive. Um, they enjoy the growth part of it. Like I keep on loving how you say these growth things. And when you all of a sudden take away this growth side, and Scott Ballard, you met Bob,
Hmm.
multiple times. He knows the reality of when you don't continue to do something, the death rate within 2 years after people stopped running their business is extraordinarily high. It's scary high because
Hmm.
the body is like naturally saying, I'm done. I no longer have purpose. Right. And so I love it when you work with your clients on thinking of that next stage, right? I love it. The most exciting part of, hey, this is what I worked so hard to get towards, and I'm going to enjoy this next moment. I'm curious with some of your clients, because as you know, there's the exit approach, which is getting out and getting your money and
Hmm.
walking away and quote unquote no longer having stress of the company. But then there's those who turn their companies into an oil well. They find a way to get themselves out of the day to day business. They become much more of a shareholder.
Hmm.
What are the key ingredients to make that happen when you've seen it done well? And you're kind of doing it yourself, frankly. You've got your kids working in your business. What do you have to do to help make sure that that process works effectively?
Well, I think, well, first of all, that is a legitimate exit strategy, is to never exit, but make yourself dispensable, not indispensable, dispensable to the business. It starts with people. It starts with a team you can trust. It starts with building the trust and the competency of people who would take it over and they run it, and that you can trust them to do that. That takes a lot of wisdom, and that's also a part of the process. So in our process, we run in 90-day segments, and every 90 days, even if the business owner says I'm going to sell in 10 years, we always ask the question at every 90 days: keep or sell. Now we can be saying keep for the next 10 years, next 20 years. But we're always saying that what's the best thing for the owner to do? I watch them develop significant things. I think of one of my close friends, close clients. He was a client first. And Mark had no idea what he would do to retire. Matter of fact, he kept putting it off and putting it off and selling it, but there was nothing you could do. And he discovered two things that he liked. One was athletic, but the other one was significant. It was playing the guitar and singing.
Mm.
And now, if you want to go and hang out at Mississippi Pizza or hang out in all around the Portland music scene, Mark's out there playing a little Dylan, a little Neil Young, entertaining. He found his thing. I have other clients that have found their charitable causes really mean everything to them. And not only do they want to give their money to a charitable cause and set up the donor advised funds and all of that fun stuff, but they want to give their time and their talent as
Mhm,
well
mhm.
and get involved in ministries or charities. So it's different for everybody. Others just want to really get close to their kids and grandkids, right? And the list is endless, but there needs to be something to move toward versus just moving away from.
Yeah, yeah, it's the reluctant sale, right? But it goes back to, once again, we've said this multiple times in this podcast conversation is, well, we're all going to exit someday, whether you like it or not. Okay, so
Yep.
exiting in a way that is graceful, that is thoughtful, that is also where I liked it. What somebody I heard recently said is, if you decide to sell your business or become more of a shareholder of the business, not in the day-to-day operations, that when you're sitting in your lakeside cabin, when you look outside with your morning coffee, not only are you grateful, but you're grateful because the company you're working for is still running perhaps even better than it was when you were there.
And there's a great deal of pride to that. And there's a great deal of fulfillment to saying, I built something that endures and I did the right things to make that happen.
Now, I'm going to say this, Bob, and once again, for those who are listening, there are those that have no emotion towards their organizations, and they want to sell for maximum dollars. I am 100% okay with that. However, I'll say this: still got to have a plan for what's next.
Totally 100% agree. Again, it has to be something new. And some of those people are serial entrepreneurs. As soon as they sell that, they start the next thing.
That's right.
And some of them want to move on to something different. I think it takes a thoughtful process. It takes a reflective, thoughtful process. And type A's, entrepreneurs, you know, hunters versus gatherers, we're not the best at sitting back and thinking through our emotions and what it is we really want and what really makes us happy. And I like to think I'm an architect for that. I think I'm a good facilitator, a good docent to take them through that process.
Something I've said more than once in the show, Bob, has been, I'll never forget it, 2-time or 3-time PE successful person, very high in the wealth charts, meaning multiple homes, travel wherever he wanted to. But he said, if I see one more luxury pool again, I'm going to drown myself in it.
I've never heard that, but I think that's funny, actually.
And because once again, because he's a hunter, right? When you're a hunter, you're a hunter. You don't like stop being a hunter. It's who you are. And part of this is we have to embrace that who we are. Our DNA is kind of like what it is. And so then that's when that next thing, man, if you're being a hunter as to being the best ball champion in your respectable community, and that's what's going to drive you, hallelujah. Like literally, you know what I mean? But we need something that is going to give us purpose and drive and a sense of success each day.
Yeah. Well, I'll go off on a little tangent on this, Carl, if you allow me to. I believe that God made us to be
Mm.
relational with Him and relational with one another. And I'm reminded of a Twilight Zone episode. I know you didn't see this one coming. And there was
No,
a
this is
Twilight Zone
awesome.
episode
First of all,
where
I
this.
appreciate what you said to start there with the faith-based part, but where Twilight's going, let's go. Okay, tell us there.
All right, so some low-level criminal, think of Chicago, kind of Bugsy Siegel type dude. He's a bank robber. He gets shot and killed in the bank robbery, and he ends up in what he thinks is heaven. And he's got a dude there who is Satan, right? But nice guy in a suit and tie, and he's just telling him, yeah, you've got this luxury, everything, you got anything you want. You got all the, as you know, I'm going 30s. You got the dames, you got all the women around you. You got the luxury food. He goes to shoot pool, and every time he breaks, every ball goes in the pocket. Like everything's just perfect for his life. And at some point, he says, and I'll shorten this up. At some point, he just gets so fed up by being just in himself. It's just
Got it.
me, I. He's got the girls, he's got the money, he's got the booze, he's got the 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 funds, the luxuries. And at some point, he says to the guy, "I don't like this. I don't like this place. I don't like heaven. Send me to the other place." And then, of course, the Satan character just starts laughing uncontrollably. Said, What made you think this was heaven?"
Mm,
And then the show fades out. Yeah, I think anybody that just lives for themselves is could do better. Could do better. And if I have any leadership, any aspirational power to help people discover their true self, what they want to do
mhm,
with that business. I think that's what differentiates. You know, I'm often asked what differentiates you, Bob, from any other wealth manager, financial planner, uh, certified exit planner, and I say two things. I said, number one, I'm not an advisor who advises. I'm a leader who leads.
mm,
I don't you. I'm not going to wait for you to call me and say, should I go? You know, take the red or the blue, and I'll give you my best advice. I want to be in front of that, and I want to lead. I want to be a leader for you. And the second thing is the human element. I've lived I've lived a good life, a great life, a lot of experiences so far from from Wall Street to Oregon. I was in San Francisco for a while, and I've seen a lot. I've seen death. I've seen cancer. I've seen mental illness. I've seen addictions. I've seen great successes burn out. I've seen diligent people succeed. I've seen so much, and to the ability that I can have a trust relationship with somebody, I want to lead everything that in me. I want to exude out. I want to share, and I want to be there for them. That human element and that leadership, and that to me is my differentiator. Our differentiator, Eric, me, and Kim. That's what we do, and I think that's what makes us different. Because anybody can do the X's and O's in the asset allocation and tell you should you be an S corp or a C corp. We want to go way, way, way beyond that.
yes, I appreciate you sharing that, and I think it's powerful. And I like it how you talk about is to continue to lead them, not just advise, but lead, right? And help
Mhm.
to bring them into the right direction. And I also think there's something to this, which is, what you're doing is the differentiators between an average wealth manager and a game changing wealth manager.
Mm.
There's you and I both know wealth management is a can be a very lucrative and a wonderful business, and um, it's easy once you've quote unquote got your money and to do very cursory connections with your clients, if that makes sense, and to basically get a really low handicap in golf and be fine, right?
Yeah,
And
honestly, I think most wealth managers, they think that once they have all your money, their job is done.
yes,
We believe that's when our job is really starting.
yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And thank you. I mean, thank you for saying that. It's and so that's where I think in this, whatever changes are going to happen, because I think it's going to happen. I think there's going to be a dramatic change in wealth management over the next 5 years. Um, People who are doing things like what you're doing is the sustainable long term stuff. It won't matter what's happening around you because you're actually adding real value, right, to your
Mm.
clients. And so I love that. I love that once again how once again you have a heart, you care about it, and because there's a soft side stuff that can't. Yes, you could talk, and we do, right? We had a conversation yesterday with ChatGPT, and about solving some things and some questions that I had, but that's not a real person, and
Mm.
it's not a real relationship, and it's also the real relationships. You said your faith in your God, faith with the people, your relationship with the people around you. Those are the things that really matter, right? And
Yeah.
so I love that. So we're gonna have a fun um, conversation here for the last few minutes here, Bob. maybe we'll go 5 to 10. We'll see how long it goes. But you're having this interesting experience. I said to people at the beginning of the podcast, we're going to talk about this experience, Florida versus Oregon. And just folks, I've lived in Oregon the majority of my life. My dad has happened to live in Florida for 30 plus years of his life. I'm really familiar with both locations because I've been to both. Well, literally since 1980. I've been able to see and observe each of these respective states. What's interesting is I haven't been to Florida as much the past few years because my dad hasn't been there, and so but things have changed there too. And Oregon has changed significantly, over the since the time when we moved here from Boston in 1980. But there's a different culture and a different environment, and you and I, once again, regardless of how we choose politically, I'm very independent. I am actually registered independent. I how people choose to have the political things doesn't matter how I treat them as a client. What's important to them is that we're helping them to hit their outcome, wherever they're trying to do. We're trying to make sure they're heading towards their goal as a business owner. But there's a different experience, and you described that you're having in Florida than you have with your Oregon-based clients. So share with me that because I think it's fascinating.
Okay. Well, I'm going to generalize a bit because there are exceptions to this
Of
rule
course.
both ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So there are exceptions to this rule both ways. But in Oregon, we're dealing with a lot of complicated and almost defensive measures in what we're doing. So the rents are sky high. Office rents are sky high. Office buildings are empty. People are concerned with the chaos, the crime, the taxes, the regulation, and there are a lot of moves that have to be made that are 4D chess because there are just lots of stuff going on that you need to try to figure out. Including we even see companies that have by working with their CPAs and others where they're setting up their holding companies in places like Wyoming or Idaho or Nevada, and they're making moves to say how can I protect myself against this regulatory beast that Oregon is, right? And so I find that, and I find entrepreneurs in general are very optimistic people, but I find that they might just shade a little bit toward the what are they doing to me today? They're waking up saying, I don't know how they're doing it, but somehow they're gonna they're gonna mess with me today. The powers that be. What I find in here where I'm at in Florida, which is the northern part of Florida. I'm not down in Mar-a-Lago, Palm Beach, Boca Raton. I'm not down in that area. I'm up here northern. We're 30 miles from the Georgia border here in Ponte Vedra, Florida. I started coming here in the mid 90s. And back then, this was purely a retirement community: golf courses, tennis courts, beach, and retirement community. Well, 2026, this is a vibrant entrepreneurial. Businesses are starting right and left. It's a younger group. You think Florida's just God's waiting room, right? As we joked, Carl, you and I have joked about that before, but yeah, plenty of people come down here to enjoy their sunset years, but plenty of entrepreneurs down here who are just enjoying the tax base, the freedom, the optimism of that. So if I were generalizing, I'm working with people who are just have hope and hopes and dreams and excitement about their entrepreneurial futures, and I'm working with people like that too in Oregon, but they're more concerned about um, the regulation, the taxes, the rents. I mean, the office building that I'm currently in Lake Oswego. I mean, they just keep raising the rents, and I get what that means for me is I get to be the only business on my entire floor of a massive office building because nobody wants to be, no one wants to be in there, but they just keep raising their rents, right?
So what I find interesting, and part of the reason why I wanted to share this and the live part behind this is we're in the same country, but this country is no longer growing in birth rate, right?
Yeah.
In actual, and immigration, of course, has been very limited, compared to what it used to be. And so we effectively have like a near 0% growth. And so what does that mean? Well, historically speaking, growth of population was your biggest driver for economic growth. When that doesn't exist, you have massive competition, right? Because there's winners and way more winners and losers, right? The baby boom generation often experienced, for the most part, growth because they literally were going along the way of the biggest growth of people in modern U.S. history, right? And
Mhm.
they had the benefits that went with that. Now, once again that population has growth has declined, you now have a situation where there's states that are winning and losing, right? Florida is one
Yeah.
of these states that's winning because it has low tax rates. They try to do the best with crime, right? They create a pro business environment where and also low retirement, right? They're even trying to get rid of more taxes in
Mhm.
Florida, while Oregon still has $1 million wealth exemption. And gosh, with just home values these days, you know, it's not that
Mhm.
hard in Oregon to hit $1 million home. So, anyways, that's just an observation, right? I feel once again, I feel it's if you're in one of these high growth states, you're going to kind of experience that phenomenon of it feels good. It feels like growth. If you're in a state that's at neutral or declining, you're going to be more competitive. You're going to have to survive, right? Because you're going to really struggle. All right. I set that backdrop up. As a business owner, what do we do if we're in that highly competitive environment, and B, if we're in the growth environment? I'm kind of curious hearing your perspective on this because you're dealing with this because you have clients in each respective area, right? How are you guiding them or leading them through a very different experience in the same country?
Wow, you're asking a tough question, Carl. Um, I'm not sure how I can generalize in that. I'm not sure how I can generalize in that, but I can tell you that it'd be no different than my super optimistic Oregon clients and my pessimistic Florida ones. If I could find a pessimistic one, it would be the same. It's like Tip O'Neill said, all politics are local, and I think it's a mindset. I'll tell you who I really worry about. I worry about our kids,
Hmm.
our grandkids. I worry about them kind of getting out of school and thinking there's no hope for me. I'll never be able to
Mhm.
buy a home. I can't start a business. Why bother? Why try? You know, I'll just go be a barista at Starbucks and that's all I can aspire to. I, I think there has to be hope. I also think that things run in cycles. I think that things run in cycles, and I don't think a blue state gets bluer and bluer until the end of time, and I don't think a red state gets redder until the end of time. I think things run in cycles, and I think anyone who's lived long enough has seen that. And then at the end of the day, I mean, we're selective. We don't want to work with everybody. We just want to work with a select number of companies. And I have been introduced to companies that are just horribly negative, and the owner's outlook is, oh, I can't compete against the big guys. My company's not big enough. The regulation's too bad. And I like to call them not to be mean or anything behind their back, but I find people to be either yes and people or yes but people.
Mm.
And I learned that from I goofed around a little bit. I'm not very funny and I'm not very good on stage, but I did do a little improv comedy just for fun to be less stiff as a Wall Street guy. And I remember doing the improv comedy, and they said, whatever the person says to you, you have to respond to them in a yes and.
Mm.
Like if somebody comes and saying, I'm shivering cold, you can't go, yes, but it's 100 degrees out. What's your problem? Right? You have to go with what they say. It's yes and. And then when I have conversations with a business owner initially, and it's like, well, how do you differentiate your company? How can we go into growth strategies? How can we find new markets? And they're like, yes, but the world's against me. The government's against me. My competitors are against me. It'll never work. I can select it. I don't have to work with yes, but people, but yes, and let's find a solution. For where there's a will, there's a way. And I don't know that if that's a good answer to your question, but for me, it is that you don't have to be the eternal optimist, but you have to see light at the end of the tunnel. And that's where I'll go back to. I want to be a leader to help them see that. I want to help develop the roadmap. And then, of course, the entrepreneur ultimately has to execute on that. But I'll be there every step of the way for them, and I'll fight for them harder than anybody will fight for them to get there.
Well said. Well said. I think I actually really appreciated it because I'm gonna double down what you said. We can't control the politics.
No, no.
We can't control the country we're in. We can't, you can change your state, but that's a choice. But for the most part, you are where you are, and it's really comes down to you as an individual on whether or not you're going to choose. I love that, the yes and I think
Mm.
that's a really good way to like leave this podcast in, is like, what is you thinking, and as people are listening then to this podcast, is how do we change our thinking to yes and, regardless of our circumstances, regardless of our health, regardless of our family situation, regardless of the money that we have in our bank account today. Yes, and what can I do next? Right.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob, how can people connect and learn more about what you're doing?
Oh, they can find us on the web, Oswego Private Wealth Management, where our website is actually OPWM, OswegoPrivateWealthManagement.com. Love if somebody just reaches out. As a matter of fact, this happened just last week, and I just have a wonderful new client who just heard me somewhere, reached out. We had never met before, and we're in a fantastic engagement now. Just call me. Let's no obligation, no fee. Let's have a conversation, and let's see if we're a good fit. And if I can be a leader for you, if I can serve you and add value to your life, I'll tell you that. And if I feel I can't, I'll tell you that too, and I'll try to direct you to someone who can help you.
Yeah, I encourage you to do that, folks who are listening. If you don't have a wealth manager that you feel is working for you, especially if you're a business owner, Bob and his team is the type of people to connect with. They're gonna help you once again find the yes and solutions to where you need to go. And because there is a better way, and there always is. If we're learners and we're wanting to get to the best location. Bob, enjoy the rest of your time there in Florida. Look forward to seeing you when you're back in Oregon. And thank you so much for being a guest once again on the Measures podcast.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate it a lot.
Hey, to everyone who's listening, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Bob is a great human being. We are just once again so privileged, so blessed to be able to talk with so many extraordinary leaders on a regular basis. And with that, we always appreciate you and helping us to become, as we become 2 years in a row, top 10 strategic planning podcasts. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything you do. And with that, I encourage you to share this episode with others. Post this on your social media. That means the world to us. As we always like to say, wishing you the very best and measuring your success. Have a great day.